The rifle's weight pressed into Cordelia Whitmore's shoulder, her fingers trembling as much from the storm as from fear. Rain pelted her face in sheets, blurring her vision, when she thought she saw movement in the tall stalks of her cornfield. At first, she was certain it was an injured bear, dragging itself toward her homestead. Then the figure collapsed only 20 paces from her porch, and a sound cut through the pounding of rain, a faint cry, raw and fragile, the cry of an infant. Lowering her weapon, Cordelia stepped into the tempest. The figure in the mud was a man, face pressed to the ground, long black hair plastered wet against his skin. His buckskin clothes were torn, darkened with blood. Clutched in his arms was a baby swaddled in a ragged piece of cloth that looked to be part of his own shirt. The child's cries were thin and hoarse, fading as exhaustion overcame her. "God help us," Cordelia murmured before raising her voice. "Can you hear me?" The man's eyes cracked open, deep, dark, and pain-ridden. He moved feebly, trying to lift himself, only to collapse again, his hold on the child unbroken. "Please," he rasped, the words broken by breath. "My daughter, she needs." Cordelia stepped closer, her tone firm, practiced. "Quiet now, rest your strength. Can you reach my porch?" He nodded slowly, the effort visible in every movement. They struggled together, step by step, through the mud and driving rain. Inside the cabin, the warmth of the oil lamps revealed him more clearly. His skin was the rich copper of the plains, high cheekbones telling of Lakota heritage, yet there was a refinement in his features, hints of French or Spanish lineage. His clothing was mismatched. Parts of traditional dress blended with worn garments of white settlers. Around his neck hung both a small medicine bag and a wooden cross. "What's your name?" Cordelia asked, fetching clean cloth and bandages from her medicine chest. "Kieran, Crow Feather," he said softly. His voice carried a strange cadence, not entirely his own. The name was unlikely to be the one given at birth, but Cordelia said nothing. In Cedar Falls, reinvention was common. She nodded toward the child, now fussing again. "And hers, Ayana," he said quietly, voice breaking. "It means eternal blossom. My wife gave her that name." Before, he fell silent. Cordelia understood enough. At 28, she had seen her share of grief. She began working on the gash in his shoulder without further questions. "Let's get you both tended first. We'll talk once you're not bleeding onto my floor." As she worked, she noticed something unsettling, her pulse quickening at the sight of him. She had lived alone since her husband died of consumption, growing accustomed to solitude, but there was something in his presence that unsettled her carefully built defenses. Outside, the storm raged. Inside, a fragile bond was quietly forming. By dawn, the rain had ceased, and the sky was pale with morning light. Cordelia awoke to find Kieran at the kitchen window, Ayana sleeping in his arms. His shirt was now a clean spare of her late husband's, stretched over broad shoulders, and his hair neatly braided. "I should leave," he said without meeting her eyes. "You've done enough," she replied, placing a coffee pot on the stove. "Go where? You can hardly stand. The child needs feeding. And you haven't told me why you were wandering in a storm with an infant." Kieran was silent for a long moment, brushing the sleeping baby's hand. "My wife died giving birth to her. My people blamed me. Said I brought ruin by marrying beyond our tribe. They drove us away." He shook his head, bitter. "My mother was French-Canadian, my father Lakota. I belong to neither. The reservation won't take me, and the white settlements see me as something else entirely." Cordelia poured 2 cups of coffee, her mind turning over possibilities. "What can you do?" "I work horses, track game, build and repair. I speak 3 tongues. My wife taught me to weave, and I know healing herbs from both worlds." Cordelia regarded him for a long moment. "Then you'll stay. Until you recover and earn enough to leave. I need help with the harvest, and that child needs care." Before the day was out, her choice was tested. While milking her cow, she spotted dust clouds rising in the distance. 6 riders approached, led by Mayor Cornelius Pike and Sheriff Vernon Walsh. "Morning, Cordelia," Pike called, eyes fixed on Kieran emerging from the cabin. "Folks say you've taken in a savage," Pike added, his tone pointed. Cordelia's voice was even. This is my land. Sheriff Walsh stepped forward. We've had reports of missing livestock. And now there's talk of a rogue in the area. His name is Kieran Crowfeather. He's wounded and has a child. Cordelia's temper flared. Are you accusing an infant of theft, Vernon Walsh? Find your thief elsewhere. Some men sneered at the child in Kieran's arms. Half-breed, one muttered. Pike smirked. She looks pale for full Indian. Makes you wonder who her mother was. Kieran's jaw tightened. He stepped forward, but Cordelia moved between him and the men. Leave my property. Her voice carried steel beneath calm. Pike pressed. This man is dangerous. He's protecting his child, Cordelia shot back. Something you wouldn't understand. Tension cracked like lightning. Then Ayanna cried, sharp and urgent. The mob fell silent. Pike spat and called a warning. This isn't over. They left, but Cordelia heard Kieran behind her. I should go, he repeated, less certain. Let them try, she said softly, the word heavier than she expected. For 3 weeks, Kieran proved his worth. He repaired her barn roof, built a chicken coop, coaxed life into her stubborn garden. He sang to Ayanna in Lakota, tended her with infinite patience. Yet the moments that moved Cordelia most were quieter. Coffee poured first thing in the morning, wildflowers on her kitchen table, reading Shakespeare aloud with an accent that made the words strange and beautiful. One night, on the porch steps, she asked him about his schooling. Missionary school, from age 7 to 14. They tried to beat the Indian out of us, but they gave us books in return. I thought it fair trade. Now I'm not sure. Maybe they were both wrong, the missionaries and the traditionalists. Maybe a man can be many things at once. Cordelia stayed silent, the words hanging between them. She had felt her walls crumble that night, though she did not reach for him. The town's hostility deepened. Traders refused her business, families shunned her at Sunday service. But unexpected kindness arrived. Henrik Anderson, a Norwegian widower, brought vegetables and aid. Mrs. Chen brought baby clothes. Cordelia began to understand that fear and prejudice could coexist with compassion. His hand brushed hers. Cordelia realized she was falling for him, though the thought terrified her. Love meant risk, loss, a piece of her she could not bear to lose again. The morning was sharp with autumn air. Leaves in shades of crimson and gold trembled under the cool breeze. Cordelia hung laundry outside, each cloth snapping against the wind, when the sound of hooves thundered through the valley. But this was no orderly procession, it was chaos. A cloud of dust rose ahead, the sound of riders growing louder. She turned, heart tightening. 23 men were coming, led by Mayor Cornelius Pike. Sheriff Vernon Walsh was among them, their expressions hard, eyes fixed on her property. Several others she did not recognize, men with the bearing of those accustomed to violence. From the barn, Kieran emerged. Ayanna slept quietly in a woven basket on the porch. He walked toward her calmly, carrying her in his arms. His every movement was deliberate, protective. Cordelia set the laundry aside and stepped forward to meet him. Cordelia Whitmore, Pike called out. His voice carried over the wind like a command. You've harbored this savage long enough. We're here to restore order. Cordelia squared her shoulders. The only disorder I see is you and your men trespassing. She moved to stand beside Kieran, her voice steady despite the pounding of her heart. Madam, this is not about you, one of the strangers said, stepping forward. We've reports of stolen cattle 30 miles south. The man in question is Kieran Crowfeather. There's a reward for his capture. Cordelia shook her head. Kieran hasn't left my land except to hunt with my permission. You'll find no thief here. This is something else entirely. Some men began to murmur, and Pike's gaze fell on Ayanna. That child is not wholly Indian, he said with a sneer. Makes one wonder what sort of woman her mother was. Kieran's jaw tightened, his dark eyes narrowing. He stepped forward, but Cordelia slipped in front of him. Leave my property now, she said, her voice low but filled with unshakable steel. You should be reasonable, Cordelia, Pike said. This man is dangerous. He's protecting his child, she answered sharply. Something you wouldn't understand. A tense silence fell. Then Ayanna cried out, piercing and urgent, and the moment cracked. Pike spat on the ground. This isn't over. He gestured to his men, and they turned their horses, riding away, leaving threats in their wake. Cordelia exhaled slowly. Kieran was close behind her. I should go, he murmured again, though his voice lacked certainty. Let them try, she said softly, and the word felt heavier than she expected. For weeks afterward, Kieran remained at her side. He repaired her barn roof that had leaked for years, built a chicken coop sturdy enough to stand for decades, and coaxed her stubborn vegetable patch into bloom. More than that, he brought a quiet rhythm to her life. He sang to Ayanna in Lakota, cradling her gently, and tended the child with an intimacy Cordelia could not ignore. There were moments when her walls cracked entirely, when he poured her coffee in the morning, or placed wildflowers on the table without explanation, saying only that the child liked color. One evening she found him reading aloud from her worn copy of Shakespeare's sonnets, his accented voice turning the words into something strange and beautiful. Where did you learn to read like that? She asked, sitting beside him. Missionary school, he said quietly. From 7 to 14. They tried to beat the Indian out of us, but they gave us books in return. I thought it a fair trade. Now I wonder if they were both wrong, the missionaries, and the traditionalists. Maybe a man can be many things at once. Cordelia stayed silent, watching the sunset paint the world in gold and rose. That night, she admitted to herself that she was falling for him, though she feared it. Love meant vulnerability, and she had already lost too much to bear another loss. Morning brought a fragile peace. Kieran was in the kitchen, Ayanna in his arms. Good morning, he said softly. Good morning, she replied, meaning it more than she had meant anything in years. But peace would not last. The trouble arrived suddenly. It was a crisp October morning when the dust of another group of riders filled the air. Cordelia heard them before she saw them, the pounding of hooves echoing across the valley. She stepped outside and froze. A mob was approaching, 23 men, led by Pike himself, armed and grim. Kieran emerged from the barn, Ayanna in her basket, and moved toward her. His stance was calm, unyielding. Cordelia stepped closer to him. Cordelia Whitmore, Pike shouted. This ends today. You harbor a man we want. We will take him. This is my land, Cordelia said evenly, her voice carrying over the noise. And no man enters without my leave. A stranger stepped forward. We have reports of cattle theft, and the man named Kieran Crow Feather fits the description. Cordelia's temper flared. You will find no thief here. This is prejudice, not justice. Pike's eyes narrowed. A man with wounds, living with a child of mixed blood, you protect him at your peril. Cordelia placed herself in front of Kieran. You will not touch him. Kieran shifted, cradling Ayanna tighter. Cordelia, take her inside. This is not your fight. Like hell it isn't, she said. Her voice rang with defiance. This is my home, and these are my people under my protection. The tension was taut. Pike's hand hovered near his pistol. Then Henrik Anderson stepped forward, shotgun in hand. Enough. His voice was low but carried weight. This is private property. No man has the right to spill blood here without cause. Mrs. Chen came beside him, rifle in hand. Others joined quietly behind them, neighbors who had learned of Cordelia's kindness, now ready to stand beside her. The mob faltered. Pike swore under his breath, his expression dark. This isn't over, he said before spurring his men away. The silence that followed was broken only by Ayanna's laugh, a sound pure and innocent, reaching over the tension like a bomb. She was reaching for a butterfly, unaware of the violence that had nearly descended. Later, when the dust had settled, Cordelia found herself on the porch with Kieran, Ayanna sleeping in his arms. You risked everything for us, he said quietly. So did you, she replied softly. They sat in silence until the last light of day faded. Kieran's voice came low and earnest. You are my choice. Cordelia's breath caught. Kieran, I know it's soon, he continued. But when I saw them come for you, I realized losing you would be worse than dying. You're not too damaged, she whispered, touching the scar along his jaw. My wife has been gone 8 months, he said. The grief comes and goes. But you make me want to live again. She reached for his hand. Then stay. I have nothing to give you, he said softly. No land, no place in this world. I'm a man between worlds. You have yourself, she said firmly. Your strength, your gentleness, your mind. You have Ayana, who has brought light to this house. And you have my heart. He leaned into her touch. If you want it, I want it all, she said, her voice sure. Your heart, your future, your daughter. I want to build something new with you. Their lips met, soft at first, then with a deeper certainty. When they parted, Kieran's eyes held hers. The town will never accept us. Then we'll make our own community, Cordelia said, resolute. One where character matters more than blood. We'll raise Ayana proud of all she is. He pulled her close. I would do anything for love. And in the quiet that followed, as the wind carried the scent of autumn leaves, Cordelia knew they would face whatever came together.